Hello there, Eliza here, and welcome to another episode of Does It Hold Up? This week we'll be looking at Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, Episode 1, the super special Sonic Search and Smash Squad. Now you might be wondering, why this instead of Sonic SatAM? Well, the reason is that I saw this one first, and I felt I should cover the first Sonic series I saw first. Also, this is pretty much the only episode of this series I have to cover, as it only had one season, it did not have a mid-season closer or opener, and no season finale. And only one story arc, which I may cover if someone requested on Patreon. However, since this episode is light on plot, I'm mostly going to be judging the animation and acting and jokes. So with all that said, let us get started on seeing if Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, Episode 1, Super Special Sonic Search and Smash Squad, holds up. So we have our first show on this show, with an opening made for it. And I have mixed feelings. This opening is too much. Too much happening, even for a zany comedy. It makes the Tex Avery show opening seem reserved, which is saying something. It's like they couldn't decide on one thing and just threw in everything. Also, why Hall of the Mountain King? It's a very odd choice to mix with Sonic game music to make an opening with. It does at least do the basics of setting up the Robotnik, Scratch and Grounder, and the Monkey Badnik, whose name I forget, are trying to catch Sonic, but Sonic and Tails keep evading them. So I will give it that at the very least. I just wish it was toned down a bit. Hold it! Now, before we move further, I want to talk about this episode's name. It is a mouthful, though I do appreciate the fact that it is nearly perfect alliteration, with only the "and" being problematic to a perfect alliterative title. I also want to bring up something that somebody might say, which is, shouldn't you be doing Best Hedgehog as it was the first episode aired? To which my response is, syndicated shows are weird like that and often choose not to air the first episode produced as the first episode, which are usually often the series premiere episode. So I've decided, for the sake of syndicated shows, I will count what the show creators viewed as the first episode and not whatever channel paid to syndicate it aired first. I do not support stupidity. With that said, the first thing we see is a close-up of Sonic's butt. Why? Wouldn't it have been smarter to do an overhead shot to show off his speed rather than a butt shot? And the poor animation for his running that kind of makes it look like he's kicking his own butt? The next few scenes where it is stationary and have Sonic running towards the camera actually works a lot better at showing off his speed and not being awkward like the butt shot. They really should have cut that first shot. It's kind of worse when they have Tails slide down next to him and do that really awkward double handshake. There's quite a bit of awkward, almost unfinished animation in this episode, though again, I will give them credit for understanding Squash and Stretch for comedy animation, though they implement it for some random reason sometimes. Also, right here, what is the point of having Sonic readying his spin dash if he just continues to run as normal? It comes across as a lack of consistency in storytelling, especially since you hear the spin dash sound as he runs. And trust me, this lack of consistency will continue throughout the episode. I really hate how everything here just looks like it was made on MS Paint in half an hour for the backgrounds. There's no perspective, especially with this shot of the supposed civilization in the distance where it looks like all the buildings are fusing together into one. Also, because I grew up reading a lot of the Sonic comics and watching the Sonic shows, and this is called Mobius in this show, why are there 7 moons in the daytime sky? Mobius is a future Earth. I know this is nitpicky, but what? If this wasn't a zany, brainless comedy, I would be wondering how Sonic and Tails don't hear Scratch and Grounder with how close they are, but it is a brainless comedy that focuses on being zany and wacky for the sake of being zany and wacky. I will, however, call out the failure of continuity of motion, where Scratch is initially seen in the bush to the left of Sonic and Tails, but then jumps at them from the right, and the bush is now behind the tree that's behind them. That's not zany wackiness. That's a failure of continuity. Now, when I was younger, Scratch and Grounder's voices irritated me, but as I've gotten older, they just seem like doofball voices. I've heard much worse, annoying, and offensive voices since then, so these doof voices do not bother me. Okay, I am playing the sound for this one.
Hold it, guys. You don't want to do this.
In modern English, my guy and my dude can mean multiple guys. In the 90s, not so much. As time went on, how weird is that? I think I may have been too harsh on this show as a kid, because so far it just feels like a low-tier Hanna-Barbera, Looney Tunes, or Tom and Jerry show. Which isn't a bad thing, though it does have lazier animation than all of them. Especially than Hanna-Barbera, which was known for lazy animation. Okay, never mind. What is this architecture? The garish contrast in colors actually hurts my eyes a bit. Also, yes, I know that in wacky, zany animation, stuff that shouldn't be able to stand do, but usually that doesn't extend to buildings, as bad construction would usually be used as a part of the joke, with the badly constructed thing falling in on itself. Also, there is no perspective here. It's all so very flat. And now we even get less of a sense of perspective as the building close to Tails and Sonic, on Tails' left, the right side of the screen, look completely different in the previous shot, being purple and having different windows and everything, to now being blue with a rainbow sunshade and pink windows. Again, if you want to ape the older styles of animation of the comedy legends, you need to understand that certain things need consistency to work. Otherwise, it feels disjointed. And yes, I know that some of them did some experimental animation back in the day where they did stuff like this, but that was experimental. And a lot of that is still garish. It isn't the stuff that's best remembered. When you think about the Looney Tunes stuff that's best remembered, you think about What's Opera Doc, or Robin Hood Daffy, or Duck Dodgers, or stuff like that. You don't think of Though I will say the slamming window followed by the zipper and lock, I actually chuckled a bit. That does feel very Tex Avery, Chuck Jones-ish. However, the lack of consistency continues as before. The formerly purple, now blue house was at the end of the way, but now we see there are two more buildings, another blue one with a yellow roof and a yellow one with a pink roof before the road cuts off. Again, just watch old Looney Tunes and you'll see what I mean by them not changing everything in a layout in every scene. Yes, I know there were some that did that. I know there are some that did that, but those aren't the ones people remember. I'm not even going to touch this pink building because I would be on this part of the episode all day if I did, but moving on. I do like the design of the Robotnik, but I'm not sure if the voice of the person doing for it works. And I'm mostly talking about the affectation. They sound disinterested in the thing they just ripped the wall up a house to ask about.
People aren't very friendly in this town.
Okay, moving on from that as well, because we are done with that town scene. Thank God. Now, Robotnik is a villain. He apparently built all the robots at this bounty hunter convention, so why does he need to offer them money?
We've got to have money.
I mean, I'm going to use Mom from Futurama as a comparison here, but if Mom wanted to have robots do something for her, she would activate something inside of them she implanted at their construction to get them to do it. This immediately removes any threat from Robotnik and makes him the joke. Granted, that's the entire point of the character in this version, and at least they get some of the core aspects right. He creates robots, he hunts Sonic, and tries to conquer the world.
Of course!
Granted, I'm not entirely sure I could see this Robotnik conquering the local Circle K.
Bill, what? Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Now, I do like some of the designs of the robots we see in these shots here, though I could swear that I've seen that spiky-haired red one with the scarf somewhere else before, possibly in anime. I swear I've seen this design before somewhere else. If anyone knows what this might be reminding me of, please leave a comment telling me in the comments below, please. Although this is some straight up Tom and Jerry stuff while he's giving the speech, the hate on the teeth, the things popping out of his head, the delayed reactions everyone has to Sonic being there, that's straight up Tom and Jerry. And I actually really like it. I grew up on Tom and Jerry, A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, Looney Tunes. And while this is kind of a weaker version of that stuff, it does handle some of it a little bit well. Not all, as we'll get to. Okay, I find it funny right here.
Made me tear every hair from my beautiful head.
Yeah, I didn't know that Robotnik had hair. I forgot that. I haven't watched this show since when I was 8 or 9. And I forgot that Robotnik mentioned that he had hair at one point. I wonder what hairstyle he had. I'm gonna guess mullet. It was the 90s. And as I said before, I do love them not noticing Sonic in the crowd until he makes himself noticed. It's Bugs Bunny-ish in nature, with a little bit of Tom and Jerry. Although I don't like this right here, where they keep on reusing the same robots over and over again. I mean, seriously, I could probably crop this in a way to make it look like the robots are running endlessly. Yes, it's an animation technique to save money, but I think they're doing it more here to fill up time.
You make the call.
Now, this right here is a joke I really wanted to talk about.
I'm over there.
This is a classic Looney Tunes joke, but they didn't do it right. Whenever it was used in Looney Tunes, they always used some kind of disguise or used the situation to disorient. When Scooby-Doo started doing the joke, they did the same. Sonic did not, which is really weird because we see later on in the episode that he is capable of doing such. So this joke comes off as improperly done. It's the "he went that way" joke, but instead he's saying, "I went that way," or "I'm over there," rather than "he went that way," which ruins the joke. So the entire point is you're disorienting, and you're not going to disorient by saying, "I'm over there." Moving a bit forward, this line right here frustrates me.
Sonic, you're going so slow.
And I'm going to explain why this frustrates me. The background is moving slowly, but the speed lines on Sonic and Tails imply fast movement. There's this disconnect between the foreground and the background and what is being said. If they removed or reduced the speed blurs from Sonic and Tails, it may have come across better, because earlier when Sonic was moving at a normal pace, he didn't have them. It makes it come across as them having an inconsistent speed for the Sonic character. And, oh god, it's another thing that looks like MS Paint. They are supposed to be pine trees, which are rather tall, and yet some of the robots are the same size as them. Now, this is the scene I mentioned earlier, with Sonic being able to do the Bugs Bunny Shaggy disguise joke correctly, and he does it to great effect. But there's one thing about this thing that bugs me. Why is one of those robots a bike pump? Just, why a bike pump? How lazy are the artists to put a bike pump as a robot? I really need to stop pointing out everything I have thoughts on, or I will be here all day, but I will say the more I watch this, the more I realize it was almost like they were trying to combine the wackiness of Hanna-Barbera, Looney Tunes, and Tom and Jerry with the limited backgrounds and occasional limited animation of Rocky and Bullwinkle? And the lack of having anything laid out correctly makes some of the jokes, like the defeat of this Minotaur robot, fall flat. The tree honestly doesn't look big enough to fall far enough to hit him, but moving on. This is something I wanted to comment on as well. I love the design of Robotnik's lair. Like, I really love this. It has a cheesy 60s, 70s villain thing going for it. I mean, it's not as iconic as, like, the Legion of Doom HQ, but it still looks good. I'd say it has a feel to the volcano lair for, like, Dr. Evil in the Austin Powers films. And more focus on butts. Seriously, this show likes to focus on the butt. With Ray here and Robotnik's dump truck. Though this right here starts a part that I have to ask a question that an egomaniacal alien prince once said best.
How did you know about the parts you weren't there for?
Because if you remember the framing device, Sonic is telling this as a story to Scratch and Grounder. So how does he know the parts that Scratch and Grounder were there for, but he wasn't? Also, I don't understand how Robotnik's machine works here, but it's kind of funny he puts garbage parts in and gets Scratch. But why did he program Scratch and Grounder to feel pain?
Why was I programmed to feel pain?
Especially Scratch, who can feel it in his tail feathers. Kind of a dick move. Did the number of levers change between making Scratch and Grounder? Yeah, it did. There are now 2 levers in between the green and red levers. The lack of consistency here is what hurts this, because, again, watch the old Looney Tunes or Hanna-Barbera. They at least had a layer of consistency in their work, which is not a good sign when you're trying to ape their style. I will say the twin joke did make me chuckle a bit, but that might be because when I was younger I was friends with a couple of identical twins who used to joke by saying stuff like, "How could you mistake me for my sister? I'm not that ugly." And instant sibling rivalry, yeah, that tracks. Before I started this episode review, I actually forgot Coconuts was a character in this show, but he's slowly coming back into my memory. Also, wasn't there a part where he wore a cowboy hat? I'm trying to remember. Was that in this episode? We'll find out later. Again, how did Sonic know about Coconuts being there, as even Scratch and Grounder and Robotnik seem to be unaware of his presence? But what? Somehow Coconuts has built a robot that has the head of a chili dog stand underground with only the head above ground on tank treads and is blathering about Sonic forcing him to do this when all Sonic did was ask for a chili dog? Was Coconuts always this kind of nuts? Please answer this in the comments because I do not remember this character. Holy crap, this is the cowboy hat thing. Huh, neat. Okay, here's another joke that I need to comment on. Tying up the guns like this is a classic joke. But again, the timing is off. In Looney Tunes, it was always instantaneous whenever a gun was plugged or tied that it would backfire. Here, there's enough time between the gun being pointed back, Coconut pulling the trigger, and Coconut getting hit. Between each of these things, there's time, which causes the joke to dampen, which is thankfully followed by a joke that hits right. This is a Wile E. Coyote joke to a T. When the show does jokes right, they land better. Though I do need to question something. Is the blow-up thing standard to all Robotnik robots in this universe, and that's the reason why one of them was a bike pump? Because we saw Grounder turn his hand into a pumpkin by blowing it up, and Scratch turns his into a quote-unquote sexy woman by doing the same. Was the bike pump supposed to be foreshadowing to the fact that they all have blow-up hands? I do like Sonic falling for that trap, though, because even in Looney Tunes, Bugs would fall for traps on occasion. What I don't like is the nod and wink Sonic does to the camera while he's in disguise afterwards. Bugs and Shaggy, when they did this joke, never needed to do that, and it feels like it's talking down to the viewers like they don't expect them to realize it's Sonic. That said, the way Sonic reverses the trap is again very Bugs Bunny. Though I don't like the giant fleshy tongues they have, it's kind of gross. Now, this was a great transition from the hole to Grounder's eye. Why does Sonic's run cycle seem different every time we see it? And couldn't they have had one consistent run cycle instead? Now, here's the thing I've realized by watching this, because Coconut's is still not really in my memory, but to me he feels like he's Elmer Fudd and Yosemite Sam rolled into one. And the entire last joke would work if it wasn't obvious that Robotnik could see Tails. What they should have done is show Robotnik seeing the red light, cutting the engines, and then show Tails holding the source of the light. That all said, this was not a bad episode. Even the jokes that don't work could have if they had been tweaked, but there's one last thing we need to look at before my overall thoughts. Sonic says, like a lot of 80s and early 90s cartoons, Adventures of Sonic had an after-school message segment. And the one in this episode is a good message. Don't call 911 unless it's an emergency. However, the framing is bad. Because if you are surrounded by 3 people that want to attack and harm you, that is an emergency and you should call 911. Yes, you shouldn't call 911 for a joke, but the framing is bad. Lastly, I like the end credits here. It's a pure Wile E. Coyote joke, complete with no talking, with the theme music playing over top. Good stuff, and that's the episode, so now here comes the question. Does it hold up? I would say yes and no. It holds up as C-grade Looney Tunes or a Tom and Jerry knockoff, which makes it better than some of the direct-to-home market Tom and Jerry movies, but as a Sonic product, I would say no. In the 3 decades since then, we've gotten a better Sonic comedy series with Sonic Boom, and just straight-up better Sonic shows with SatAM, X, and Underground. It's still an enjoyable watch, and I probably will rewatch the rest of the series as well, as I did have genuine laughs while watching it, but I still prefer all the other Sonic shows over this. If you like Looney Tunes or Tom and Jerry and want that fix while watching some different characters, give it a watch. But if you want just pure Sonic, there are better variations out there. If you enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe. I have a Twitter, link in the description. Please be 18 plus to follow me there. I also have a Patreon if you want to help support the show. I would love to have an actual microphone for better sound quality. Patreon gives you access to the scripts, a quarterly poll, and access to my Discord server. And starting next month, my episodes will appear a few days in advance there first. If you don't want to support me on Patreon, circulating the links helps the channel grow. With all that said, I'm feeling hungry, so I'm gonna go order some pizza. Hopefully it will arrive by next episode. Thank you.